What's up, you guys? We're talking UFC Vegas 105.
Lock and load.
This pedestrian fight card is headlined by a featherweight match between Josh Emmett and Lerone Murphy. The co-main event also consists of a somewhat intriguing featherweight match between Pat Sabatini and Joanderson Brito. Other than that, you got a lot of Dana White's Contender Series debutants, as I like to call them. Some fighters making their debuts coming off DWCS. You have some middle-of-the-road veterans looking to maintain roster spots, keep some wins going on in the octagon. You don't want to lose too many fights after you've been around for a long time because there's so many young fighters coming off DWCS that are looking to replace you on the roster, right? So these middle-of-the-road veterans, every fight is very crucial for them. When you think of fighters like Gerald Meerschaert and Brad Tavares, you can't help but get a whiff of PFL, right? That matchup right there has all the makings of a PFL main event. And seriously, if one of those fighters takes an L there, you just never know. I have a great respect of the work that they put in throughout the years, especially when you're talking GM3, a fight finisher, one of the greatest submission artists to ever do it in the octagon, if you actually want to be serious about it. Even though his overall game is lacking, Tavares, he's very game, never has really been a fight finisher. Now, since the two premier fights at the top of this card are taking place at 145, let's just take a second to look at what's going on in this division. Of course, Alexander Volkanovski will be taking on Diego Lopez at UFC 314 down in Miami. That's for the vacant title. After Ilia Topuria sets it down on the table, it looks to go up to 155. Ilia Topuria, a lot of people hating on my boy Topuria there. You guys know he's one of my favorite fighters in the game. People feel he's too cocky. Unfortunately, some of you guys feel that way about me, it seems. I saw some of you guys in the comment section. It really hurt my feelings when I saw user X64432QRJK giving me life advice, telling me that I've been a little bit too cocky on the mic and I need to tone it down and humble up. That hurt me bad. But on a serious note, you guys know I really am excited to see what Topuria brings up to 155. But down over here, Lopez or Volkanovski will be the new champion. We'll see if Volkanovski can once again be the kingpin of 145. Lopez has been on absolute fire. As far as who would be next to fight the winner of that match, how do you not bring up a Lerone Murphy if he goes out here and gets a big win over Josh Emmett? He would still be undefeated. He would be on an 8-fight winning streak in the UFC. His really only blemish was a draw that he had in his UFC debut against Tukigov. Okay, I mean, this dude's never taken an L before. So I don't know if he's there with a win here. I mean, depending on how he does it, if he goes out there and gets a flash KO, maybe he's right in the mix. You got a big cloud over his head in Movsar Evlovoyev, another fighter who just refuses to lose, but doesn't really have that exciting fighting style, right? 19-0, just refuses to finish a fight. But at the end of the day, the UFC is going to have to work him into the mix one way or the other. Arnold Allen just bounced back with a big victory over Giga Chikadze. And then what we really want to talk about are the two featherweight bouts that are taking place again on UFC 314, right? Patricio Pitbull taking on Yair Rodriguez. If Pitbull goes out there and wins that fight, and if he does win the fight, it very likely will be in a very entertaining type of way, because that's just the way that he fights, okay? The longtime kingpin of Bellator, in my opinion, probably the greatest Bellator fighter of all time. All right, he has an argument to get a title shot right after that. All right, he's not a young fighter. You got to work him into the mix. The UFC signed him so he could be barking up the tree to be fighting for the belt next very easily. I could easily see him skip over a fighter like Movsar. All right, so we'll see how that shakes out. And then on that same card, Gene Silva takes on Bryce Mitchell. Gene Silva is relatively new to the UFC, but he's the type of fighter that just comes in and he's going to be right in the mix right off the rip. When you think of about a fighter like Alex Pereira, he came in, got a couple W's, he's fighting for the belt right away. It's that entertaining fighting style, that fight finishing ability that they have, and they kind of have like a mystique to them. Obviously, Gene Silva a lot more vocal than a Pereira. They're different in that sense, but if Gene Silva goes out there and starches Bryce Mitchell, what do you think the next fight's going to be? I'm not saying it's going to be a title shot, but it's going to be a huge match. And then he gets a W there, say he gets another knockout. He'll be fighting for the belt in no time if he continues to put in that work. And Bryce Mitchell is also a household name. Imagine if he pulled off the upset against Silva, right? He's another fighter that will be in the mix. So a lot of exciting stuff going on in this division. All right, guys. So that's a little preview before we jump into this card. And we'll jump into the first fight in just 1 second. But if you guys can, please, everybody just smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. And I want to announce, okay, there's been something that I've been talking about for a long time. A couple different things that I've been hinting at, okay? Hopefully, it's looking like a new segment that I'm going to have here on the channel will be kicking off for that UFC 314 fight card. Okay, so you guys will see the video when it's released, but it'll be a new type of a new form of content coming to you here on the channel, and it will be for that big UFC 314 fight card. Go catch me on all my social media while you guys are at it. And if anyone's looking to work with me for my official targets for this card or any card, you guys can email me or shoot me a DM on IG or Twitter. All right, guys, let's go jump into the first fight.
The teller.
In the women's strawweight division, we have Loma Lookboonmee taking on Istela Nunes. You got to love Loma's last name, man. It sounds like someone's getting frisky over there. And Loma, I would look at her as a very underrated fighter in this division, especially when you take into consideration that she still hasn't even cracked the 30 marker. We know that she came into MMA with the Muay Thai experience. She's very calm and composed with her stand-up, and she could really hang with the best of them in this division as far as her stand-up goes. And we've seen growth from her with her grappling as well. Istela Nunes, I mean, this is a chick that had this super long layoff before finally getting an opportunity to fight in the UFC. She was coming over from ONE FC and really didn't accomplish that much over there anyways. She comes in and she hits a 4-fight losing skid since joining the UFC. She is 0-4 in the UFC. She's coming off a brutal arm injury. If you guys remember that last fight against Victoria Dudakova, she had the dislocated elbow. Even if you want to chalk that up to being a fluke injury, you're going to have a tough time making that argument. You take a look at the other 3 fights. Yasmin brutally beat her down and finished her up in the second round. The Sam Hughes decision loss, if you want to mix in some MMA math, Sam Hughes, a fighter that took an L to Loma Lookboonmee. Ariane Cornelosi went out there, submitted her in the 3rd round. And I want to highlight some stats from both of these fighters' matches with Sam Hughes. Istela Nunes was taken down 2 on 5 takedown attempts. She was controlled for 3 minutes and 26 seconds. You could say she had a little bit more success defending the grappling, but she still hasn't shown to have any real offensive grappling to try to pose that threat to Loma, where we have seen Loma struggle a little bit, right? If you even look at the Sam Hughes fight, that she still did get her hand raised in. She outstruck her 84-49 on significant strikes. But yes, Hughes did control her for 6.5 minutes down on the mat, even though she was 0 for 2 on her takedown attempts. And it was actually Loma that hit 4 takedowns on her 8 attempts, ironically there. But you definitely don't like seeing Loma on her back. Even when you think of the Lupita Garines fight, that was a fight that she was controlled down on the mat for like over 7 minutes, right? So that has been one of the somewhat deficiencies in her game. But like I said, I just don't think that Istela has shown to be much of a threat there. As far as the striking, I feel much more confident in backing Loma, who's just so calm and composed and mixes it up so well. And when you take into consideration that she's been more active and got such an early start to her UFC career, I think that we see the best version of herself. I'm not worried about her being undersized. She's always undersized in all of her fights. She's always going to be at a reach disadvantage and all that. The most imperative thing is that she keeps this fight standing and stuffs any type of takedown attempts that Nunes could possibly throw her way. Or at the very least, we see some growth from her with her get-up game, working back up to her feet, because she should be comfortably in control of this fight with the stand-up. And it's not out of the realm that she proves to be the much better grappler anyway. All right, we've seen some submission skills developing with her. She just recently had a submission victory over Elise Reed, right? She got that 2nd-round rear naked choke. And Istela Nunes is the type of fighter that I could easily see Loma going out there and continuously showing that growth there with her overall game. She could take advantage of a fighter like this. So let's take a look at the betting line. Right now, Loma is a minus 550 favorite over Nunes. So you see the masses are in agreement with me with their lack of confidence that Istela Nunes is any type of legitimate UFC fighter. And, you know, I'd parlay that up with saying that people have confidence that Loma is going to continue to grow as a fighter, and she shows some raw tools there. That line, it's a little steep, really, for any women's strawweight bout like this. I mean, that's kind of steep, guys. I mean, I'm not, yelling at you guys to go run to the sports book and hammer this type of line. I mean, what's your return going to be? I just want to say this. I feel comfortable that Loma wins this fight. This could be a fight that we talk about on the prop edition video. Maybe we're talking about a specific method of victory where we can get that line to come down. But at the end of the day, I do like Loma to get her hand raised here for sure. We will stay put in the women's strawweight division. We have Vanessa Demopoulos taking on Talita Alencar. Alencar, the high-level BJJ black belt who recently came into the UFC from DWCS. She seems to be pretty one-dimensional, if we're being honest here. Vanessa Demopoulos is a pretty high-caliber jiu-jitsu player in her own right, although I don't know if she's on the level of an Alencar. I would say Demopoulos has one of the most flexible guards that we've seen in the octagon. But when you're talking about her BJJ as a whole, since coming over to the UFC, she really hasn't shown to be too much of an offensive threat. You could highlight the Silvana Gomez Juarez armbar victory she had. That was really the only sub that she had under the UFC banner. And that was a fight that she got dropped in. And then the very green grappler and Juarez just fell right into that armbar. So we'll give her some credit for pulling that off. But I don't know if she's going to have any type of ability to sub Alencar. And that's just fine because she doesn't need to go out there and do that. She just needs to be able to defend being subbed, which she's done a pretty good job of throughout her career. And you may be saying, wait a second, Demopoulos was just subbed in her last fight. Okay, well, that was the first time that she was ever submitted, and it was against a very high-level submission artist in Jacqueline Imoram. Okay, when Imoram goes out there, she's pretty much subbing everyone that she's in there with. Okay, so just understand that. And then Demopoulos argued the stoppage, right? She got caught in that armbar. I don't think she technically tapped, but it was pretty deep. All right, but you give her some credit there too. I mean, she didn't look for a way out, and I think what she needs to do in this fight here is just avoid going to the mat, and she could prove to be the better overall mixed martial artist. She definitely has some dog in her. If you think back to some of the fights that she had even in the LFA, she was a former champ over there. She went to war with Lupi Godinez. She lost her belt in that fight, but that was a 5-round war. She's willing to bite down on her mouthpiece and slug it out with you. And I think that she should be able to get the better of the striking exchanges between her and Talita Alencar. Alencar just hasn't shown us anything there. Demopoulos will go out there and get her hand raised. I mean, you think of the Emily Ducote fight. I mean, she snuck off some W's, although a lot of them are against lower level fighters. She gets her hand raised more than she gets credit for. Alencar hasn't shown us anything thus far to be capable of going out there and exploiting Demopoulos' defense. And you take a look, she absorbs 5.53 strikes per minute while landing 3.87. That's a tough ratio, but take a look at Talita's, landing 2.49 while absorbing 4.8. And then when you think about the last two fights that she had, against Stephanie Luciano, right? She had the rematch in her UFC debut. The first fight against Luciano went to a draw. It hasn't aged that well, right? Luciano just dropped a fight in her last match there. So, I mean, I just think that Demopoulos proves to be the more well-rounded fighter, but it definitely will be imperative for her not to play around too much with the grappling because Alencar is dangerous there. Demopoulos is currently a -140 favorite. The comeback on Alencar is at +120. I like that line on Demopoulos. I don't think it's that bad at all. Obviously, it's not that wide. She just has to avoid being subbed. And some of you guys may say, yeah, it's a big if. I'm not as concerned about Demopoulos' takedown defense. Like, let's say if she doesn't get subbed, I'm not as concerned about her just being on her back. Because even there, she may be the fighter that's landing more damage. I could see her getting back up to her feet at times, and every round starts back on its feet. And I think that she'll land some damage. I mean, who knows what the judges are going to be looking for? As you guys know, they've been all over the place. I mean, the judging criteria has been crazy. I thought it was just strictly damage. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore. Okay, if you guys have been seeing what's been going on, when you think about the Loughran versus Fletcher fight, I mean, the fact that he won that third round, that was crazy to me because Loughran did absolutely nothing. He got a couple little quick takedowns and Fletcher was right back up, and then the damage that he landed to solidify that round still wasn't enough to take it. I mean, who knows what's going on with the judging criteria, but I like Demopoulos. I feel pretty confident in her. If she doesn't get subbed, that she should be a step ahead. Victor Henry takes on Pedro Falcão at 135. Pedro did drop his UFC debut against Victor Hugo. That fight took place about a year ago. All right, it's been a while since he's been in there, but let's not forget he did take that fight on short notice. He was pushing the pace early on. You could say he took the first round, but he then slowed down. For this fight, He will be much more prepared, in my opinion. He gets in work with some of the best of them. You see him hitting the pads here with Jason Perillo. He's known for training with Jose Aldo for a lot of big fights, training over there at Nova União. He's gotten in work with fighters like BJ Penn in the past, legends of the game. Although, of course, BJ Penn has got some things going on. I mean, you still got to respect some of the work that he's done in the past. And Pedro's just 32 years old. Okay, so I just want to let you guys know I expect to see a better version of himself going into this fight, a much more prepared version for himself. If Pedro does have high-level grappling, I believe he's like a third-degree black belt. If you look him up on YouTube, you'll find more grappling tutorials by him than you'll probably find fights of his. I mean, he's all about the details when it comes to the grappling. And even in that loss that he took against Hugo, he still had 7 minutes and 10 seconds of control time. He was just 1 of 13 on his takedown attempts, though. That was really the issue. He needs to work on being more efficient, getting the fight down to the mat, because he's high level down there. And you also note, Henry was just submitted in his last fight, right? He got caught with a guillotine choke by Charles Jourdain. Or where I can see Pedro having adversity in this fight is if he does, once again, struggle to get this fight down to the mat and he's breathing heavily throughout the fight. I could see Victor picking up the pace with his striking. We've seen him do that before when Raoni Barcelos was stuck in a kickboxing type match with him. Surprisingly enough, as a massive underdog, Henry was the fighter that was out ahead. He snuck off a split decision victory over Tony Gravely. The Ronnie Yaya fight, he got a KO there, and you could kind of look at Yaya and say, oh, that's another high-level BJJ player. If he's not able to get the fight down to the mat successfully, you could see Henry take advantage of a fighter like Yaya and a fighter like Pedro. They're similar in that extent, but I would disagree with you a little bit there. I'm a huge Ronnie Yaya fan. I've been watching him from way back in the day, from the WEC days, man. He was like the little miniature Damian Maia. He was so high level with his BJJ, but Yaya was much more one-dimensional than what I've seen from Pedro. Okay, Pedro even just had a little boxing match, and he's working on his striking. All right, so you mix it all together, and I'll tell you what, man, my gut, I kind of swapped up my pick here. If I'm being honest with you, initially I was looking at this matchup and I was saying, oh, Henry has the recipe here. All right, just avoid going to the mat and hit him up with the volume and the length and the striking and all that. But something's telling me that Pedro's going to come out hot here, man. All right, he's been out for a while. We're going to see the sharpest version that we've seen from him. He's had a year to refine his craft. And I could see him just being a little bit more complete and having more tools to set things up to get the fight down to the mat. Okay, that's kind of what I'm expecting from him. And I love his aggression. Okay, he will be marching forward. He'll look to land big, heavy left hooks and all that. Okay, so this is a fighter that will be giving you a run for your money. He'll be pressing forward and he'll meet Henry there. And just, the Henry loss that he just had against Jourdain, I didn't like the way that he made that mistake in the second round. I know Jourdain is also BJJ black belt, but I believe that he's not quite on the same level as Pedro. All right, and I know Pedro also hasn't had a lot of submission victories. I do understand that, but I think they'll come. I think they will come here in the later half of his career. Okay, because he has the abilities and he's solid at controlling fighters down there. The Javid Basharat fight, that has not aged well either. Javid has looked pretty atrocious in the cage as of recently, and that was a fight. Although it went to a no contest, Javid was clearly winning the early part of that fight, and he hit Henry with a groin strike. And I mean, that's a hard one to speculate on, but I kind of feel like Henry could have continued. It kind of looked like he looked for a way out of that fight, even though I know he got hit pretty hard there, but he knew he was losing. I felt like he knew that he was outmatched. And I don't know. I kind of wonder where he's at mentally when he has a fighter like Pedro marching him down. I'm going to back Pedro here. I'm going to take Pedro to win this fight. Let's go take a look at the odds. Now, Pedro is the dog. He's a plus 135. Henry comes in as the favorite at minus 155. That didn't surprise me. It didn't surprise me at all. I expected Pedro to be the dog here just based off of the fact of that UFC debut performance. People are worried about backing him. They feel if he doesn't have success getting those takedowns, that Victor Henry can out-volume him with the stand-up and all that. And we've seen that Henry's pretty well-rounded. I get it, guys. Okay, but I see more value on the dog here. And my gut is telling me from digging and doing a little bit of research that Pedro is going to come in very prepared for this fight. His gas tank will be better, and he will be the aggressor. He'll be a leech out there, and I think that he could sneak out a victory here. I think that he's live to land a sub. In fact, I'm going to say he gets a submission here. I'm going to say that Henry makes a mistake just like he did in his last fight and gets caught in something. He gets put in a vulnerable situation, and he gets subbed. Now, even if he doesn't get submitted, I think that Pedro can still win 2 of the 3 rounds using the grappling and control time and all that. And as we've seen, some of these judges actually are starting to put a lot more merit into that aggression with the wrestling. Even if you don't do a lot of damage, you could still win rounds. So I'll take Falcão here. We have a European clash here between the Irish Rhys McKee and the Romanian Daniel Frunza. We have to kick this segment off with talking about Frunza's last fight. If you guys remember that one, man. He took on Vadim Kutsi. Okay, came into that fight as a dog, was on DWCS, and it was a hell of a war. Okay, but he was out ahead from the get-go. Okay, he hurt Kutsi early on. Kutsi had some slight success gathering his wits, and he got Frunza down to the mat a little here and there, but it was Frunza that was just constantly looking to land damage. Okay, and that's exactly what he did, up until the point where he got the stoppage in the second round. I mean, that was a fun fight, and I think that Frunza just showed that he is a dangerous man. Okay, he has that scrappy type of striking style. I wouldn't say that it's the most refined. It's not bad. I mean, it's technical. Okay, but he's the type of fighter that's just really looking to march you down and land damaging strikes on you. Even when you look up his highlight reel on YouTube, I mean, you look at some of the KOs that he had even previously before that fight. I mean, he's a nasty dude. Okay, and when you look at McKee, we all do know that McKee has suffered from string bean syndrome from a young age. Okay, but he's pushed through it and he's had some success. He kicked off that first UFC stint facing off against Khamzat Chimaev. And if you guys remember, I feel like that was the moment when we were all starting to realize the potential that Khamzat had in that fight. We were all starting to get really introduced to him, and that was a brutal fight for him. He followed it up with a loss against Alex Morono. Morono, what can we say about him? But, I mean, he went back to the drawing board, went back to Cage Warriors, strung off 3 victories in a row, some recognizable names in Justin Burlinson and Jimmy Wallhead. Judo Jimmy, and then he makes a return back to the UFC, and he goes 0 for 2. Now, the Ange Loosa fight played out a lot closer than maybe some of you guys remember. You take a look at it, and you'll see a unanimous decision loss, but he had some moments in that fight. Just took an L against Chidi Nzechukwu, but Nzechukwu, dude's looking like a beast. I mean, you saw how he looked in his last fight. Okay, so if you want to analyze what's going on with him here, and I'll say this. I think that this fight should play out to be a striking affair. I think both fighters will kind of welcome that. Maybe if we see any type of ground action, maybe it's McKee trying to use some jiu-jitsu skills down there. But I think that these fighters are going to strike it out. And I really like what I've seen from Frunza. So I'm going to back him in that type of fight. Okay, I think that he would have been more vulnerable if he was matched up against a high-level wrestler or, a superior grappler. I think that could be a little bit more of a threat to Frunza. And I think you could say the same thing about McKee. We've seen McKee struggle being taken down, even if you run back tape on him from way back in the day, even before he signed with UFC. I mean, he's had issues being taken down. You take a look at one of his earlier losses, like when he took that L against Terry Brazier. That was a fight that he was taken down quite a bit. I think that he welcomes a kickboxing type of match, and I think that will favor Frunza. The UFC debutant, Frunza, is a -190 currently. The comeback on McKee is at +165. I don't think that line is that steep where it's at right now, and I expect to see action continue to come in on him. I could see Frunza entering the cage around a -230, -240. I think the more people run back tape of that last fight, people are going to continue to be impressed from what they see from him. You just kind of look at the whole recipe, man. He's an aggressive striker, and he should be just a little bit quicker and have a little bit more oomph on his shots. And Dione Barbosa takes on Diana Belbiţă in the women's flyweight division. Belbiţă has had a rough road in the UFC. And I'll tell you what, even after she takes a loss here, please, UFC, if you're listening, give Belbiţă an 8 to 9 fight contract extension. All right. We want to see her continuously stepping foot down into the octagon. All right. At least I do. I don't know if you guys agree with me. Hit up the comment section. Take a look at the head of lettuce that she brings into the cage, man. What a crazy head of hair. I challenge any of you guys to give me another women's fighter that has had a better head of hair than this chick right here. I know a lot of my old homegirls from grade school would have looked to scalp a girl like Belbiţă if she came strolling through the hallways. And that's a fun fact for you guys. Maybe not a lot of you guys knew. There was a good portion of my schooling, my grade schooling, where I was the token white boy in the school located off MLK Boulevard. All right, that was the teller believe it or not, if you guys didn't know that. But, you know, to this matchup here, man, Barbosa brings in that black belt in judo. She has a solid judo skill set. Her striking is looking pretty damn good. You run back the tape on that Ernesto Kerekate fight. She was hitting her with spinning back elbows and all that. She was outstruck statistically in that fight, right? She was outstruck 100 to 87 on total strikes and 53 to 39. Okay, but it was Barbosa that landed the more impactful and oomph type of strikes, right? Specifically with those spinning attacks. I thought that she looked pretty good, was blasting the body kicks. And you could argue that maybe she didn't get the nod there, although it was a unanimous decision. I mean, it was a close fight. It could have went either way. It was a very close fight. I thought Kerekate looked good in that match too, and Kerekate is a high-level fighter. I think that she will be one that we will be talking about for quite a bit of time. And when you're talking about these types of chicks, if we're being quite honest, it's just Belbiţă is not deserving to be discussed in the conversation, all right? I mean, she gets submitted by Molly McCann via armbar. Okay, Molly McCann has no type of grappling. She lost to Karolina Kowalkiewicz before that. If you take a look at any of her W's, they're low level, right? Maria Oliveira, Hannah Goldie. I mean, run that Hannah Goldie fight back, all right? I want to see a rematch of them two. How about that? And if you guys didn't catch back in the day, I actually did an interview with Hannah Goldie. She was funny, man. She was on the live, and she mentioned how she just ate an edible and all that. And I don't know what she's doing. I think she's making plenty of money outside of fighting. But, you know, listen, we're not going to talk about this one too much longer. Barbosa is the superior fighter. Is she able to get a finish? I think that's more what we're talking about here. Barbosa has still not a knockout, not a TKO finish to her name. Belbiţă has never been finished via strike. She's been submitted quite a few times, right? She's been submitted 5 times out of her 9 losses. Right, that's where the majority of her losses are coming. She's very green with her grappling. Maybe Barbosa can do a little judo throw, get on top of her. Maybe she could set up an armbar. Maybe we see something like that. And I'm going to actually, you know, I'm going to say that Belbiţă makes it to the final bell, but I wouldn't be surprised if she gets caught in a sub. But I feel very confident Barbosa wins this fight straight up. So, I mean, she's a minus 450. That line is very accurate in my opinion. I mean, what is Belbiţă going to do? Belbiţă is not the same level of a striker as Kerekate. She's lower level there. She's aggressive. She could try to march forward and bring that aggression, but technically she will not be there. Barbosa is going to look better than ever. I know that Belbiţă is still young at 28 and she could grow as a fighter, but I just don't see it. I don't see it being there. I think that maybe she's even had these opportunities based on the fact that she's an attractive woman and all that. So we'll see how the fight plays out, but Barbosa is the better fighter here. Davey Grant just keeps on chugging along at 39 years old. He actually was just in the cage recently, about 3 months ago. He was on the last card of the 2024 year. I was actually live in attendance for the clinic. He essentially put on Ramon Tavares, a very green fighter, but a fighter that does have some solid boxing skills. I mean, he outstruck him 147 to 69 on total strikes. Okay, Grant looked really good in that fight. He's taken on Willie Cat Daniel Santos here, the Shootbox product, who is now, I believe, 2-1. That's correct, 2-1 in the UFC. Started off a little slow with that L against Julio Arce, lost that fight via decision, and then had the crazy, epic comeback knockout victory over John Castaneda. If you guys don't remember that fight, he was hurt very bad early on in it, and then he came back and he broke Castaneda down. I don't really rate Castaneda that high, nor do I rate Johnny Munoz that high. So if you're taking that into consideration, his 2 bounce-back victories after the Arce loss, I mean, I still don't believe that he's really proven. Where, on the other hand, Grant is showing that even at 39 years old, he comes in great shape and can push the pace. I know that he was getting in work with Aljamain Sterling and Merab Dvalishvili leading up to this fight. Okay, so that's the type of work that he's getting in for this opportunity here. Take a look at what he's been doing even before the Tavares victory. A lot of people, I mean, listen, guys, go look it up for yourself. The vast majority of the fight world. In fact, let's just keep it real, guys, when it comes to fights like that. He defeated Daniel Marcos. All right, he won that fight. That's really what happened there. Okay, listen, Marcos was an official play of mine, okay? And I hit on that. And I'm admitting to you guys that was an L. We should have lost there, okay? And Marcos has since looked really good even after that fight. So that's a solid win for him there. The victory over Rafael Sansao, that was crazy. That was a Sansao's retirement fight. Somewhat of a legend of the game if you've really kept up with the WEC from back in the day. I mean, Sansao's been around forever. knocked out Luis Smolka before that. The Adrian Yanez loss, that went to a split decision. That was a very close fight. There's an argument he could have possibly have been deserving to get his hand raised. It was a close one, not a robbery, but a close fight. And Yanez is a high-level boxer. I mean, his other loss was against Chito Vera. How about the knockout victory he had over Jonathan Martinez? Came back and got the late knockout in that fight. I mean, I would say that Davey Grant has consistently been one of the more underrated fighters over the last 5 years, 4 to 5 years. And I would admit that I'm a part of that group there of underrating him or just kind of overlooking him. And I'm not going to overlook him here. And sure, some of you guys can say, well, you shouldn't have been overlooking him then, and maybe you should overlook him now as he's creeping up on 40 years old in this lower weight class. Okay, I understand what you're saying there, but he was just in there and he looked great, and I'm not going to overlook him. I'm not. Okay, you take a look at the numbers here. We have seen that Santos is vulnerable to being hit. We do know that Grant carries some power. He's dynamic with his striking. He's kind of unorthodox, herky-jerky. He'll hit you from odd angles, and I think that he can out-volume Santos if this fight goes to a decision. And I also think that he's live to land a KO. Why not? If Castaneda could have hurt Santos like he did in that one fight, and the way we see Santos come in so overly aggressive with that typical shoot box style, marching forward, why can't Grant capitalize and counter him as well? But no matter how you spin it, I like the dog to get his hand raised. I'm going to say he actually wins a decision, but I'm going to kind of cheat and say if he gets the knockout, I called that too. How do you like that? The Factory X product and one of the main training partners of Brandon Royval, Luis Gurule, makes his UFC debut. Got another debutant here. He's taking on Ode Osbourne. Osbourne, he's been around for a while now. Okay, it was a long time ago that he fought on DWCS. It was one of those early seasons, and boy, is he coming off a tough fight. You could argue he potentially should have got his hand raised. It was a close fight against Lazy Boy Ronaldo Rodriguez. That was a fight where it was the takedowns late that cost him, right? He almost finished the fight early on, but he wasn't able to seal up that finish, and it cost him, right? And there's been a lot of fights where he's just kind of came up short. Charles Johnson is going to be the biggest name you're going to see, but don't forget, Energy took that fight on short notice, and it was very competitive. Energy gassed out, but what do you expect? I mean, the dude jumped off the couch and took that fight. Adeshev, Vergara, Jerome Rivera, I think he went on to be 0-4 in the UFC. Let's point it out because I'm always chirping about old Jerome Rivera, man. God forbid I ever bump into him on the streets, bro. He's going to look to take me out. He is 0-4. He was knocked out in 2, submitted in 1. So to his credit, he did actually go to a decision once upon a time against Francisco Figueiredo, the brother of Devison. But to this matchup, I was very impressed with what I saw from Luis Gurriel in that last fight against Nick Piccinini. All right. And it started off a little slow from him. All right. I had some big money backing Luis. So I was actually on the edge of my seat. I was getting very nervous when I saw him taken down early. He kind of was in risk of being subbed, but he was very composed, worked his way back up to his feet, and he was consistently the fighter that was looking to land damage. All right. He has collegiate wrestling experience as well. Okay. So he has a wrestling background. That was one of the main reasons why I backed him, because I knew that if he was able to stuff those takedowns from Nick, that he would have been the more complete fighter. And that's exactly what we saw in that matchup. It was really a great showing of himself. You take a look at the strikes that were landed. It was 105 to 64 on the significant strikes. Okay. You can look at the total strikes, but let's be very clear. Run the tape back on that fight. I mean, Luis was landing the significant strikes all throughout it. At the end of the fight, he was pointing down at the mat. Nick wanted nothing to do with that. He was shooting another takedown to end the fight there. And yeah, he had 5 minutes and 33 seconds of control time, but he simply was not landing damage. Okay. And Gurriel will look to land damage, and Ode will as well. I mean, that's why this is kind of a fun fight. Ode is going to have a massive 8-inch reach advantage. We know that he is one of the longer fighters in this division. He's very athletic, and I just don't want to completely overlook him because I do respect Ode, and I know he's motivated more than ever. I mean, the way that he took that L in that last fight, you have to assume that he is extremely motivated to bounce back here. But at the end of the day, I think that he's going to fall short once again in a big fight, whereas Gurriel is going to rise to the occasion. I mean, if you listen to him in his interviews, this dude, they talk about, oh, did you have a bad weight cut? I mean, if you hear his response, it's like, there's no such thing as a bad weight cut. I don't care how bad it was or how crappy I felt. He's like, I got to just push through it. It's all mental. Oh, you looked exhausted at this one point in time. How did you hit it into that next gear? Kind of DDP style, right? Just push through being winded and whatnot. And he goes, because Well, when I'm thinking about it, when I'm in there, who cares if you're tired? Push through it. It's a mental thing. You know, if you just push through it, then it doesn't matter if you're tired. You know, I mean, that's the type of a fighter we're talking about. We're talking about a mentally superior fighter in the octagon here between this matchup. And you're going to see that be the case with a fighter like Gurule and a lot of matchups. He's going to be the mentally superior fighter. He's tough as nails. Okay, he's tough as nails, and I think that's going to pay dividends. A lot of times we talk about fighters, about how good their striking is, how good their wrestling is, and I'm talking about myself, right? Because I'm the one over here on the mic weekly breaking these fights down. Maybe I need to pay more attention and highlight when a fighter just has that dog in him, okay? Because that is a major threat that a fighter brings to the cage. I mean, that's a weapon, being a dog and just being a warrior, being a real fighter. Because at the end of the day, they are fighting. And I think you guys know where I'm going with this. I like Gurule to show up and get his hand raised. Now, he's a -240. Buday is a +205. I think there's definitely an argument that the value's on the dog. All right, the veteran and Buday, who's been here plenty of times. He's very hungry. He is skilled. I mean, you could definitely argue that the value is on Buday. And in fact, that's what I would say. Even though I like Luis to get his hand raised, that line's a little steep for me at -240. I think that there's a possibility that he can get a TKO on Buday with this being a high-paced fight. I think Buday can make a mistake that cost him. But this is another one where I may slightly lean towards a decision, actually, on my official pick. But there will be a high pace to this fight, and this will be an exciting one. But I'll give Buday the benefit of the doubt that he makes it to the final bell. All right, guys, we're main carding it right now. Robert Valentin taking on Torrez, Finney. If you guys didn't know, I was a big fan of Finney getting that contract to fight in the UFC, and I actually felt that he should have got it even earlier than he did. I just was not in agreement. One of the few times I was not in agreement with what Dana White was saying. Usually, I'm all with Uncle Dana there. All right, but you take a look at what he was doing. I mean, he fought on the show 3 times. All right, he had a submission victory against Yuri Panfarov, who was all hyped up going in to that episode. First off, right, Panfarov fought on Dana White's looking for a fight and all that. He went out there, he finished the fight at the end of the day. Okay, even though he went through some adversity with his stand-up. We understand he's a one-dimensional fighter, but he's not a boring fighter. I don't think he's boring at all. Just because he looks to take people down, he doesn't do it in a boring fashion. I mean, the dude's out there pressing for his takedowns. He'll look to lift you over his head and slam you down. He slams you hard down to the mat. And it's kind of exciting because it's like the fighters that he's facing off with, they'll get back up to their feet. They'll look to land big strikes in him, but then, can they stuff the follow-up shot? You know what I mean? They end up being kind of fun fights. And mostly also due to the fact that his striking is a little bit lower level, because then it's like, it's nerve-wracking if you're backing Finney, because he may get knocked out. And eventually he probably will get knocked out when he faces off against fighters that have higher level takedown defense. Okay, but I was not in agreement with the UFC making him fight 3 times on the show to get a contract when he finished 2 of the 3 fights. All right, I get it. Some grapplers are boring to watch. That's not Finney. Okay, he's a spectacle. Dude's built like a tank, and he'll look to pick you up over his head and dump you. All right, so I'm excited to see him make his UFC debut. He's just 26 years old. The striking hopefully will come around, because if it doesn't, he's going to be in big trouble fighting at a higher level here. Is Valentin that much of a higher level compared to some of the other fighters that he's fought? I'm not so sure about that. I mean, he's a dangerous striker. Just 3 knockouts out of 10 victories, but notably did have that one big knockout on the Ultimate Fighter against Yanis Bakar, where he had that knockout in just like 20 seconds. It was brutal. But then, I mean, he goes out there as the favorite in the Ultimate Fighter finale against Ryan Loder, and looked pretty bad, man. You take a look at the numbers here. He got finished up in the second round. He was outstruck 63-5 on total strikes. Okay, he was controlled for 4 minutes and 45 seconds. And another thing I didn't like, man, he was talking about, and I'm not against any of this stuff, but when you're a fighter, I think you should have your head on your shoulders and be a little bit more grounded. He was talking about like taking ayahuasca leading up to the fight, I believe, and all that, and how he was feeling all spiritual. I think when you're a fighter, you kind of have to be a little bit more locked in and forget about all those ayahuasca and this and that. I think you need to be worried about doing things to pump up your testosterone naturally, of course. You know what I'm saying? You want to have that. If you guys know what I'm talking about, man, as a young man, when you're really feeling good, dude, certain things, you're eating healthy, you're feeling strong, and your testosterone is naturally kind of high. Maybe you just feel like you got a chip on your shoulder, man, but you're willing to go out there and you're ready to go out there and go to war. And I think that's where you want to be at mentally. I don't think you should be out picking dandelions out in the woods. All right. So Torrez Finney, I know he's going to show up and he's going to look to put it on Valentin here. And I like him to win this fight. I like the fact that, he's going to run out there and he's going to press the action. He's going to look to solidify those takedowns. I think we could expect to see the ground and pound look better and better. And why can't he go out here and do some damage down in the mat? That's how I feel about this fight. I'll make it quite simple. I like Finney to get the job done. And I'll say Finney gets a finish. I'm going to say that he lands some nasty ground and pound and really opens up, and somehow he gets a stoppage, a ground and pound type stoppage. I'm actually going to go with that. A second round ground and pound type stoppage. Hopefully the cardio is hitting on all cylinders and he can just keep pushing that pace and just keep rinsing and repeating those takedown attempts. But I don't really have a lot of faith in Valentin right now. Now, to play devil's advocate, if Valentin's going to have success in this fight, if he keeps it standing, he's the more polished striker, or if he could even continuously get back up to his feet and we see Finney breathing heavily, no question about it, Valentin won't even be live to just win the fight, but he could very well get a KO in the matchup as well. So earlier when we were talking about Davey Grant, we mentioned how he has been a perennial overlooked fighter. GM3, Gerald Meerschaert, is certainly a fighter that you can throw into the mix of that conversation. I mean, check out some of these numbers when you're talking GM3, okay? 37 professional victories, 29 of them come by way of submission, all right? 12 octagon victories, 11 of those 12 victories come by way of sub. He's realistically one of the greatest submission artists that we've ever seen in the UFC. All right. And then if you also take a look at his losses, and this is the reason I believe him to be a little overlooked, right? Okay. His striking defensively, it's not on a very high level. And when he loses, yes, he's typically being finished. You think about it, even his last fight, he got subbed in the third round. He got knocked out by Joe Pyfer in the first round, but Pyfer hits like a Mack truck. Okay. RDR has high level jiu-jitsu. Khamzat Chimaev knocked him out in just 17 seconds. I mean, that was a tough one. That was a tough one for him. We know Chimaev is extremely high level. Now, he doesn't always just go out there and do what he did to GM3 when he's in there with other fighters. Usually he's using his grappling. That's why that one looks a little funky. Okay, but Chimaev has power. He has boxing skills, and it just was an off night for him. You think of the Ian Heinisch KO loss. So, I mean, we've seen him take those tough losses, and I think that's why he gets overlooked a little bit. But just remember this, a loss is a loss. It doesn't matter if you go out there and you lose a split decision compared to you being aggressive and looking to bring the fight and you get caught with the big strike, right? I mean, you take a look at the overall resume. I think that GM3 is really a solid fighter. He's been a solid fighter and he's had a very successful UFC career. Okay, I'm not saying for sure he's a Hall of Famer. I don't know about that. I mean, I think that depends how you look at just the amount of submissions that he's racked up. I mean, I would say he's not really a Hall of Famer as far as the level that he was on, his peak performance, the level of ability that he brought overall to the game. He wasn't a consistent top 15 fighter. Forget about even making his way towards a title shot, but he's a fun fighter to watch. He's been around for a long time. Brad Tavares has also been around for a long time. He's very game, not really a fight finisher, man. 20 victories, just 7 knockouts, 2 subs. He's more of a decisionator. He's also been finished 5 times. A lot of people look at Tavares and they think that he's like this durable dude. It's not exactly the case. I mean, got knocked out by Gregory Rodriguez recently, got knocked out by Bruno Silva. Shabazian finished him up in the first round. I mean, there's been quite a few knockout losses for him. Tim Bosch finished him up in the second round. Robert Whittaker finished him up in the first. I mean, I'm listing off a couple here for you. I don't think that Meerschaert is really going to get him to a situation like that, but where GM3 can have success in this fight is by making it a grueling one. He doesn't want to let it be just a kickboxing fight from the outskirts where Tavares can outpoint him. He wants to make it ugly where GM3 can then potentially get on top and look to land a sub. I mean, that's where he thrives, and those types of wars where he eventually gets on top and pulls off a sub. We saw Jun Young Park have 6 minutes and 32 seconds of control time in that last fight against Tavares. Okay, he was 2 of 6 on his takedowns. Park is a good fighter. I kind of rate Park decently high. He's a well-rounded fighter. He has nice boxing, nice kickboxing skills, but he can also wrestle. Can GM3 implement similar tactics there to eventually get this fight down to the mat? It's possible. I'm going to say, all in all, though, I am going to back Tavares here just because I have liked what I've seen from him as of recently to an extent, even though there's been a lot of L's going on. And if you actually dissect the L's, they're pretty high level. All right, he's going he's going the distance, right? He lost that Park fight. That was a split decision loss, I do believe. Yes, it was. It was a close fight. Some people thought that he should have won. He had moments in that fight. There's no question about it. Gregory Rodriguez is a high-level fighter. He looked pretty good against Weidman. I don't know. Do you guys think he looked good? I mean, he pretty much dominated the fight, but he should have stepped on the gas a little bit more. Probably could have got Weidman out of there, but he was clearly winning the striking exchanges, but Weidman was a wounded animal. I mean, but still, you take that one for what you will. The Bruno Silva KO one, that one is probably held in the lowest regard, of course, but then the DDP decision loss does not look bad these days. I do believe that DDP, without a doubt, is the best middleweight fighter on planet Earth. Okay, I have him over Khamzat Chimaev. I mean, that's an argument for some of you guys if you want to meet me in the comments section. But DDP, not only is he the UFC champion, I think he is rightfully the greatest middleweight fighter on planet Earth. So they don't look that bad, okay? And you know what? And I'll put enough merit into some of the work that he's done, just breaking down his tape to back him in the spot. I'm going to say that he keeps the fight standing long enough to outpoint GM3 and he wins this fight via decision. Now, I was a little surprised when I saw the odds here. Tavares is currently a -270. GM3 is a +230. I, without a doubt, feel the values on the dog. I think that this is a much closer fight than the line says. Meerschaert can make things ugly here. And Tavares has a history of having fights play out very close in general, even when he's getting his hand raised. Okay, this could easily be a split decision type of fight, or we may see GM3 just get another sub in there. So, I mean, values on the dog. We got a heavyweight match here. The number 15th ranked Kennedy and Nzechukwu taking on Martin Buday. Martin Buday, I am not that high on him. Okay, and I know he's been getting his hand raised pretty consistently. He's 14-2 as a pro, and since joining the UFC, working his way in from Dana White's Contender Series where he knocked out Lorenzo Hood, he is now 5-1 with that lone loss coming by way of a high-level fighter in Shamil Gaziev, where he was finished in the second round. Take a look at the level of competition here when you're talking about him getting the job done. You guys know I have a great deal of respect for the legend Andrei Arlovski, okay, but he just was at the very tail end of his career. In fact, he just fought recently under Mike Perry's Dirty Boxing promotion. If you guys caught that whole thing's on YouTube. I think you could run the whole thing. In fact, you can. I watched the whole thing on YouTube. And let me know, what do you guys think about the rule set for the Dirty Boxing? I like it a lot. I like the fact that you could follow up the fighter down to the mat and rain down ground and pound. It was a little weird how some of those fighters were just like not looking to kick off with their legs and create space. I'm trying to still fully understand the rule set there or what's going on. But I kind of like it a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I love my BKFC, but I'm almost feeling like I like that rule set more than the BKFC. I love them both. What do you guys think about Mike Perry's Dirty Boxing? I want to know what you guys think about that. But Arlovski just went out there. I think he got a W, right? Fought a very low-level fighter, of course, as to be expected. You're going to have these Joes coming in from the bar, working their way into the show. But but take a look at the other fighters. I mean, Josh Parisian, Jay Collier, Lucas Brzeski, Chris Barnett. We could even mention Lorenzo Hood. You're talking about the absolute bottom of the barrel as far as UFC heavyweight talent, right? These are fighters that have snuck into the heavyweight division based on the fact that it doesn't have a lot of depth. I'm not high on any of these victories. Kennedy is a fighter that I do rate much higher. I know that his resume, it doesn't look the best as well when you're taking a look at some of the same names, and Lucas Brzeski, but went out there, destroyed him in the first round, destroyed Chris Barnett in the first round. He does have some more respectable victories, though, if you want to talk about the Carlos Olberg finish that he had there, Ian Cutelaba. It's just the way that he looks when he's in there, though, and the intangibles and the traits that he brings to the cage. And I know a lot of those fights were also in the light heavyweight division, but I think he has looked great coming up to the heavyweight division. And I just think that he's the better fighter here. He's more dynamic with his striking. Yes, pretty solid takedown defense. He's going to have a massive 7-inch reach advantage. And I just think that not only does he get his hand raised, I think that he could find a finish in this fight, right? You look at that lone loss from Buday. He was finished up in the second round by Gaziev. I think that it's possible that Kennedy replicates some of that. So I will back Kennedy to get the job done here. He's just 32 years old, right? 32. I mean, there's some real potential for Kennedy in this division. And I like the fact that he came up in weight. All right. The heavyweight division, it's not as deep. You get a couple solid victories going and you're really making some noise here. And I think that is actually likely to happen. I think we're going to see Kennedy work his way towards the middle of this division and get some solid and some big names moving forward. All right. So give me him to get the job done via KO/TKO. He's currently a minus 285. Buday is set at a plus 245. Some people may feel there's value in the dog here, based on the fact that Buday is a winner at the end of the day, and they're not as worried about the way that he looks or how he's not the most flashy fighter, but that he gets the job done. He's decently well-rounded. I'm on the other side of the fence. I think the value's even on a high line here in Kennedy. I just think that he's going to have a lot of success with his striking just being quicker, more athletic, and he's more well-rounded than he's probably given credit for. In the bantamweight division, we have Cortavius Romeus, who worked his way into the UFC after getting a second chance on Dana White's Contender Series. On the other hand, Shang Ho Lee worked his way in from the road to UFC, and he did win the finale, if you will, there against Long Chao. Now, that was a very, very competitive fight. It could have went either way. By no means was it a robbery. I mean, it was a true flip of the coin for which way the judges were going to go with that. I mean, you take a look at the numbers. I'll tell you what, I thought that Long was going to be the victor as the fight finished up. He had over 6 minutes of control time, even though he was outstruck 135 to 173. But I mean, the striking, it wasn't like Lee was running circles around him, although he was a little bit of a step ahead. He landed some nasty knees in the clinch. He showed to be better there. But when you take a look at the grappling exchanges, I mean, 6 minutes and 19 seconds of control time, and he did land some strikes down there. I was a little surprised to see which way they went with the decision. But once again, just showing that you never know what the judges are looking for. I mean, are they counting the control time more, or are they just looking for more damage on the feet? I mean, you just never know what they're looking at. But it was a closely contested fight. And in that fight, I would say we saw a decently high-level matchup. Okay, and I say decently, all right, so pump the brakes. But the point I'm making is that a few years back, you take a look at the road to UFC or fighters coming from that region. I don't know if they would have been as developed and as well-rounded as we're seeing them come out right now. I mean, these fighters are coming out and they're ready to go. I think there's been a nice little leap from that part of the world. And of course, the UFC is invested in that, and just in general, it's just picking up. And I think that those types of fighters that we're talking about there in that matchup can definitely hang with the fighter of a caliber of Cortavius Romeus, who hasn't really shown too much thus far. We saw him get knocked out by Ramon Tavares in just 29 seconds on that first fight on DWCS. He went back to the drawing board, struck off 2 victories in a row, got a submission victory first before taking Michael Imperato to a decision where he got the contract or got the opportunity to fight in the UFC. I wasn't really that impressed with that performance there. And then he gets that UFC debut matchup against Gaston Bolanos, who is a high-level kickboxer. And Bolanos was clearly a step ahead. Okay, so even though Romeus had 6 minutes and 13 seconds of control time with being 4 of 6 on his takedowns, I mean, he was outstruck 80 to 30. He really didn't have anything for him on the feet. There was just no type of striking that he was offering back. He's a quick athlete and all that. He's quick twitch, but I don't think that his striking is that polished. Romeus is definitely more of a grappler and a jiu-jitsu guy. And I think that this could be a little bit of a tough matchup for him, as we've seen that development from Lee, stuffing takedowns and just working back up to his feet. And he'll have a massive 4-inch reach advantage. He's 4 inches taller. He's much larger. And I could see him just being the more polished striker and having enough success keeping this fight standing where he should prevail. Okay, so, I mean, let's jump over to the betting odds, because I got some things to say about that. I think that the value is on Romeus at plus 150. I think that the line should be a little closer than that. If Romeus is able to have success with his grappling, I mean, this is a fight that he possibly can get his hand raised in. Lee's good. He's good, but don't mistake him or confuse him as some of the other more high-level Korean fighters that we've seen in the octagon over the past year or so. All right, because we've seen a couple of them come in. Don't confuse Lee for one of them, because he's looked pretty good, but he's just has that one fight here in the octagon. And there's a couple other guys that I have rated a little bit more high that have more potential than Lee. From what I've seen from Lee this far, we'll see if he can continue to build off of that last W. But this is a fight that could easily play out closer than I would want to chalk up minus 175 on Lee. So we'll see how that goes. But value on the dog, I'm going to say Lee wins the fight, though, via decision, landing more damage and having enough success stuffing those takedowns. To the co-main event in the featherweight division, Joanderson Brito looks to bounce back with the victory. He's coming off a tough loss, right? Went to a split decision with William Gomis. Then Gomis follows that up with an L there. He's taking on Pat Sabatini here. Pat is coming in off a huge victory went out there and made quick work of JSP, went out there and hit him with the rear naked choke in the first round. And that was a big one for him because he was coming into that fight off the tough knockout loss to Diego Lopes, who, by the way, Lopes is a common opponent. Don't forget, Brito handed Lopes that L on DWCS. But I mean, you take a look at Sabatini, man. He's been very active on the grappling scene. We know he's a very high level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu player. Okay, I mean, if he gets on your back, I mean, he can finish you in a multitude of ways. We've even seen him go out there, pull off leg locks like he did against Jamal Emmers. He's dangerous across the board when it comes to his grappling. Not a lot of notable victories. A lot of them have aged pretty bad. I mean, you can mention the Emmers one if you want, but Tucker Lutz, TJ Laramie, these guys never panned out in the UFC. Lucas Almeida. I mean, it's a pretty rough road there when you're really raving about a JSP victory. But it's just, if you understand Sabatini's game, you just understand that he does have high level grappling. If you're not up to par there, and if you're not prepared for his grappling, it can cost you. I mean, you're talking 13 of his 19 victories coming by way of sub. Of course, he puts in a lot of work over at Renzo Gracie in Philly. You see what Sean Brady just recently did to Edwards. I mean, these guys, their grappling is pretty high over there. So Sabatini is like a little miniature Sean Brady, if you will. And we'll see if he can have success doing that. I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, I think that Brito is a little bit of a tough matchup for Sabatini in the sense that he's never been submitted thus far in 22 professional fights. He still has not been subbed, and he's been in there with a couple dangerous jiu-jitsu players. I wouldn't say on the level of a Sabatini, but he's been in there with some grapplers before. I mean, Jack Shore, JSP with the wrestling, and he's fared well. He actually went out there and submitted JSP, caught him with that ninja choke. All right, so we've even seen development from him there. And if he's not getting submitted, he's just a much more complete fighter, and he's the much more dangerous striker. And I could see that paying dividends. I could see him landing damage throughout this fight. I kind of look at this match like Sabatini either has to get that sub or he has to have extensive control time, which I just don't know if he's going to be able to do that. Maybe he pulls off the sub, but is he going to be able to control Brito for 8 minutes of a 15-minute fight? I don't know, man. I could see Brito kind of breaking off and getting out of some of those positions. And even when those other rounds kick off on the feet, I mean, Brito carries some serious power. All right. I mean, let's just highlight the power that he possesses. 8 of his 17 victories come by way of KO. There's been some notable knockouts for sure. Knocked out Jack Shore, knocked out Weston Wilson in brutal fashion in the first round. A couple subs there. The Andre Feely KO. Just took him 41 seconds to land a devastating knockout there. Knocked out Chepe Mariscal over in LFA. Okay, so I mean, he is dangerous with his striking, and all in all, I will pick Brito to win this fight. Now, Brito's a pretty hefty favorite. He's a minus 240. The comeback on Sabatini is at plus 205. I've been a little bit back and forth with how I feel about this line. I have faith in Brito getting his hand raised here for the most part, but at that line, not crazy about it. I think with the momentum that Sabatini has right now, as active as he's been in the grappling world and coming off that big victory he just had, I would have to say that the value is on Sabatini at a plus 205. And here we go. We got the main event. And guys, just note, if anyone's looking to sign up to a new sportsbook, reach out to me, whether it's through email or DM me on IG or Twitter. If you sign up through my referral link, I will give you my entire betting package free for this card or any card that you want. All right, so just note that real quick. You guys, Murphy versus Emmett. We got ranked featherweight action. In the intro to this video, I talked about the implications for this fight. If Murphy wins this fight, I mean, you have to believe that he is at arm's reach of fighting for the title. You cannot guarantee that because there's fighters like Movsar Evlovoyev up there. We got the Bellator newcomer and Pitbull. I mean, there's a couple fighters that are really towards the top of this division, barking up fighting the winner of Diego Lopes and Alexander Volkanovski. But Murphy, dude, is still undefeated, man. 15-0. He would be 8-0 in the UFC. If he goes out here and gets a flashy KO, if he brings the fight, I mean, that would really pay dividends for him. I would say that he's probably going to be one fight removed from fighting for the belt if he could pull it off. He's going to be in a title eliminator in his next match. I mean, you have to believe that's the case. Josh Emmett would be a big victory. Emmett, one of the hardest hitters that we've ever seen in this division. All right. And when you're talking hardest hitters, let me just highlight real quick. I am very excited to see the return of my boy. All right. Jeremy Stevens follows me on IG. He's always showing love on IG. And I'm very pumped to see him making a return back to the UFC. When you're talking hardest hitting, what was the saying? Someone hit me up in the comment section. When Stevens cracks him, they don't move. He flatlines them. You guys know, however he said it. But, you know, and that's exactly what he did to Emmett. Okay, I was there at that event live. That was the main event. That fight card took place in Orlando. That was the only time we've ever seen Emmett KO'd. Okay, other than that, he's shown to be pretty durable. And if we're seeing a knockout in his fight, it's typically him knocking the opposition out and not just knocking them out. Okay, I mean, the way he knocks dudes out, it's crazy. All right, as of recently, you think of what he just did to Bryce Mitchell. That was one of the most brutal KOs that we've ever seen in the fight game, period. It was devastating. I mean, this dude has a cannon attached to his shoulder. Other knockouts you could think of, the Michael Johnson KO was brutal. Knocked out Meerschaert, who was once upon a time one of the hottest prospects coming up in the fight game, was coming out of ATT way back in the day. I know eventually he went up to TriStar, but I was scouting Bektik, just so if you guys know how deep of a fight fan I am, because, you know, I had somebody in the comment section talking about how, oh, what does this guy really know? Because I was kind of poking some fun about, you know, I call him Sleepy Boy, Lazy Boy. I was saying, you know, why does Sleepy Boy have all this hype? And one of these jits out there hits the comment section up below and says, oh, what does this guy really know about the fight game? Like, I have time to really dive into the charisma and what Sleepy Boy's doing outside the fight game that's making him kind of a pop star. And I don't care about that. You know what I mean? I break down his fight tape. Okay. You know, I've been scouting fighters out, dude. I was scouting Bektik when he was like 16, 17. All right. Like I said, when he was training with ATT, he was supposed to be one of the top fighters. Okay. I've been doing this when some of you guys were getting your diapers changed. All right. So for that dude that commented that, if you want to know what I bring to the table and what my accolades are, I don't really care about what Sleepy Boy is doing on his TikTok. All right, guys. So some guys, I do care what they're doing on their TikTok, but not Sleepy Boy. All right. Maybe eventually I'll be more of a fan of his and what he brings besides just his fighting ability. But I asked you guys because I was curious why he was getting the following. But to this matchup, guys, I'm sorry. I digress. And maybe I'm getting too cocky on the mic. All right. Someone was saying that. I'm sorry, guys. Please don't take it that way. You guys know I got a lot of love and support for all you guys. But to this matchup, I'm all over the place, guys. I've been on the mic for a long time. All right. I like Murphy to win this fight if it goes to a decision. If this fight goes to a decision, I really like it to go Murphy's way. I think that there's a solid advantage for him there. Emmett's 40 years old. This is a 5-round fight. Murphy's slick. We saw him put it together after getting dropped and getting hurt against Ige in that last fight. You saw him put it together, and eventually he outstruck Ige 78-52. He took that fight over. He's slick. He's been in some wars before, too. You think about some of the work that he's done. I mean, he has a good amount of experience, even though he doesn't have an overwhelming amount of fights. He has some solid cage time. The Edson Barbosa fight went through a little bit of adversity there, took that fight over, a 25-minute fight against a fighter that fought for the belt in Barbosa. I mean, he's slick. He's well-rounded. I still do believe that he lost that fight to Gabriel Santos, but I told you guys Santos was going to put it together, right? Santos had some tough L's, fell short against Anima, but he made a mistake. He was winning that fight. Look at him now, dude. That dude's maturing into a man. Gabriel Santos is a stud. So even though I thought Santos defeated Murphy, I still have Santos rated very highly. And I think Murphy is a crafty fighter. He should win a decision. That's actually where I'm going to lean for this fight to go. But if we see a finish, even though we've seen Emmett knocked out before, we've never seen Murphy KO'd. I do believe that it's Emmett that lands the knockout in this fight. And I actually believe it's possible to happen. I don't know if I want to say very possible, very likely. It could happen, guys. It could easily happen. Emmett can go out here and get a KO in this fight. He's 40 years old, but he's a specimen. Dude is ripped up, jacked up. He's still in great shape. You guys know he surrounds himself with some great people over there with Team Alpha Male and all that. And if we see a knockout, I have Josh Emmett getting the job done. But you take a look at the numbers, it definitely correlates to what you see on tape. Okay, Emmett is a little bit more defensively flawed. Murphy has a better ratio there, landing 4.8 strikes per minute compared to only absorbing 2.67. He's pretty crafty there. Emmett absorbing more than he lands. Okay, he'll look to walk through fire. He'll get bloodied up. He'll look to land that big overhand. And if he doesn't, I think that he'll be in trouble here. Let's go take a look at the betting odds. Murphy is a minus 260. This is a similar type of line here. Emmett is a plus 220. Okay, the comeback is at plus 220. And this is a similar line without a doubt. And this is one where I feel the value's on the dog for sure. In a main event spot like this, against a crafty veteran that hits hard, who's always game. Plus 220 is where the value lies. I do not have a lot of faith in backing Murphy at minus 260 odds. I don't. So all in all, if you were looking to bet this fight, as of right now, I'm leaning towards taking Lerone Murphy to win this fight via decision. And that could be a sneak peek that we're talking about in the Prop Edition video. I like Murphy to win via decision. All right, guys, that's going to wrap this one up. As always, got to hit you with some parting words. We won't go super deep, as this is just a smaller fight card. So we'll save the real deep thoughts. Maybe for UFC 314, forget it. Oh, we're going to be like Aristotle. And what's some of those great philosophers? We're going to be diving deep into the back of our brains for that fight card. For this one, I'll keep it simple and fun. But listen, guys, I see some of you guys in the comment section, or I saw somebody in the comment section, saying, like I mentioned earlier, saying, oh, you're getting too cocky. You need to humble yourself up. And I just hope that you guys understand that I'm just having fun on the mic. Okay, guys, some of you guys take things a little too seriously. I'm assuming some of you guys are probably only childs that say stuff like that, or you don't have like a big group of friends that you guys kind of relax and just have a good time, chopping it up with each other and busting balls and stuff like that. You should have some confidence behind you, and definitely don't ever take someone's advice when they're telling you need to humble yourself and you need to stop being confident and cocky. Okay. Because 99% of the time, they're probably just a little jealous hater. You could also note that it could be warranted and you need to check yourself a little bit. And it's always good to reflect on yourself as well, but probably don't take advice from YouTube user X4927 with no picture there. All right. Don't take his advice. He's probably in his mom's dungeon, but definitely take your loved ones and your friends' advice, because they have your best interests, and it's always good to reflect. All right. So you could definitely take people's advice from around you, just not user 56752s. All right, guys. And you should be confident and you should feel great about yourself too. All right, guys. Signing out. Teller.
The teller.